In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at some very interesting updates in the Tropical Storm Fiona department because we've seen a huge southwest trend with this storm, which puts the United States at a much bigger risk of being impacted by this storm. So we'll talk about that a little bit later on. There's also some bigger cooldowns in the foreseeable future that we need to speak of and some interesting Rocky Mountain snowstorms to go over. Let's just get straight into things though, and we're taking a look here at our radar imagery. We're taking a look here at some storminess out there west for the Rockies, actually, currently. Even some snowfall. We saw that, I saw some pictures yesterday. After we went over the radar, there was some snow falling for the southern Rockies, mostly Colorado. And I saw some pictures later on that day of some snow-capped mountains. So that kind of reassures that there was definitely snowfall coming down and accumulating snowfall for some of those areas. Very interesting stuff. We see that for the Gulf of Mexico and off of the southeast coast, we have plenty of precipitation happening out there. Some storminess taking place for sure. And this is going to possibly come on shore later on. We see this time and time again where some precipitation is able to make its way on shore from these storms that are offshore. The conditions are pretty similar. We just need that daytime heat to hit, and then there will be some more storminess on shore there. And then we see some of this going on here. All the way from the plains, Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, the Dakotas, and Minnesota, then eastward through the very northern Rockies, Great Lakes there, like the upper peninsula of Michigan, and even into New York a little bit. So let's zoom in and talk about some of these different areas, and then we'll get into the modeled guidance and talk more about the upcoming weather. For now, we have some showery activity, very isolated and scattered activity there. For Washington State, we see that as we move further east than that, we see Washington, Idaho, Montana. We see a lot of this storminess taking place, mostly showery activity, but for Montana, it is looking a little bit like possibly some heavier showers here near Great Falls. Some, maybe even a little bit of some thunderstorms in there, isolated thunderstorms, but there is some cold air over place, so that would be a little bit odd, but not unheard of. We see that for the more southern Rockies, not even really the southern Rockies, more the mid-Rockies here in the United States at least, we do see that there is a lot of activity in here as well with light to moderate precipitation, but there is some snowfall coming down for multiple different areas. We see that for northern Utah, I'm underlining it there, we see some snowfall. Actually, I'll just zoom in to really give you guys a good look here, but we see that this mountain range right here has seen some snowfall in there mixing in at times, so we see that take place there just to the east of Salt Lake City. Let's take a look and see if any of these mountain ranges. Sometimes these ones that extend down see some snowfall. Not this time, though. As we move up to Wyoming, we can see this mountain range had a very similar occurrence in here. Not even that far down, but I guess just up here in the northern end of things. We saw some snowfall coming down for this area as well. So it's usually these very, very tall mountain ranges, and one of the tallest is this one out here as well. So we see this mountain range. This mountain range is a very, very tall one. And then obviously down there in Colorado as well. We see some taller mountains in this area. So there's just a couple of these ranges where we usually really see some early season snowfall. Sometimes Idaho gets some of the first snowfall, but the storms have just not shaped up that way because there are some tall mountains out there as well. These ones in Utah happen to be some of the tallest, and then down there in Colorado, obviously, as well. Now, as we move eastward here, we'll start on this end of things because this is looking mostly like possibly thunderstorm activity down through Oklahoma, up through Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, and even a little bit of Missouri there as well. As we move northward through there, we see for the upper Midwest, it's the same story. Heavier showers perhaps, but probably thunderstorms happening for some spots in there as well. And then we see this little part of it extending down through New York and eventually probably going to impact a lot of the northeast in here, or at least a strip of it in this area. These storms happen pretty often where they stretch across and then come through the Great Lakes, but this is just getting started. So New York, you'll see it over the next few hours, or probably once this video is uploaded, taking over, and then parts of New England and the rest of the Northeast start to see it a little bit after that. And then again, for the Gulf and the southeast coast, we do have some of this activity, mostly offshore. At this point, this will come more onshore a little bit later on, so keep that in mind, where these areas could get some thunderstorm activity with this tropical air mass that is just set up the entire summer, just like normal though. Now what we're going to do is move on, talk about the model guidance, the upcoming storminess, temperature pattern, and that tropical storm Fiona that we really need to go over. Again, big update in that department. Now here we are taking a look at that European model for the upcoming storminess. Let's just move this towards this afternoon. We can see some storminess really taking place out there for the Rockies up through the northwest. We see for the upper Midwest here, we do see some storminess as well for areas like Minnesota, the Dakotas, Wisconsin, Michigan, and then again, a little bit more widespread inland with some of this thunderstorm activity there. Let's just move this towards tomorrow afternoon, Saturday, and that's going to be September 17th. We see this all kind of coming together with some storminess out here. Again, still the Gulf of Mexico and Southeast seeing some storminess as well. By the time I reach Sunday, which will be the 18th, we see a storm moving towards California. Going to be very interesting to see what happens with this one. I'm reading a book. This is kind of an interesting note, but it's about the Donner Party. It's a bit of a negative note here, but I'm reading a book. I forget what it's called. Something with stars. Probably a lot of you have read that book, but something like Stars Above or something. I don't know. But they move through the Rockies. You probably know the story from history, obviously, but then they get to kind of California, the Sierra Nevada mountains, and then it's September in the book, and I just read this part, and then storms start to move in, and they obviously get snowed in, and then the rest is literally history. But it's interesting to see that this year, just like that year in the 1840s or whenever it was, 1840s, I think, it happened very, very similarly. A storm started to move in September. Before that, they didn't have much storminess, so we're seeing the West see what it saw even all the way back then with the storm moving in the mid to late portion of September. Not bringing snowfall this time around, though. That year, it really, really did, and it was detrimental to them, obviously. Now, by the time we reach Monday, we do see the storm is still around. We see some storminess moving in through Arizona and New Mexico, and this is moving through Mexico into those regions. So we see some tropical storminess making its way a little bit pretty far north. We see our tropical system here near Dominican Republic and Haiti, so we'll continue to track that. We see the Northeast dealing with some storminess, and also the northern United States dealing with a bit of storminess, and the Southeast. Look at that. A lot of different regions seeing some minor storminess. What we're going to see is this is going to kind of curve offshore, but then it's going to want to try to come back. That's really concerning to see. We have seen tropical systems change directions like that, so we'll watch it, but spoiler alert, that's what's kind of going to happen here. By the time we reach Tuesday afternoon, we see out west overall the storminess is a big, big factor here. We see it across the northern United States as well. A little bit quieter in the southeast, but if this tropical system comes through, it really will not be. This is a 994 millibar low pressure center by this point, so this will be when it's really intensifying early next week. We can see for Wednesday, September 21st, it's intensifying further down to a 990 millibar low pressure center over the Bahamas. We see a strong storm system. This is a worst case scenario because what we're seeing is a trough moving in right when the storm would be moving in, and that allows for it to hit the United States overall. Usually when there's a high pressure system in place, it'll curve it away, but we have low pressure and a trough that's going to likely be moving in around the time that it would be impacting, which is going to allow it to freely move towards the United States if that's what it ends up doing. We see a cold front extending down. This is what's going to bring that trough in. We can really see the trough here already, so I don't know why it stops, but there. Once we get to Thursday, it's pretty clear this is almost entirely moved in already. Our tropical system is down to a 989 millibar low pressure center there. We have a huge ridge out west and a big old trough in the east here. Lots of low pressure around. We have a 973, 9 something millibar low pressure center here. This low could easily just move straight in without a problem around this time. It's mostly when that trough moves offshore where the jet stream will set up because that could push it away. Now, by the time we reach Friday afternoon, that's kind of what we see happen. We're seeing a jet stream kind of like this, and it looks like it wants to kind of just get into that jet stream and move with it. But we see it kind of just stall out here, and it's a 970 millibar low pressure center by this point, by the way, so this would be a hurricane most likely. Other things going on to mention, a 974 millibar low pressure center here, bringing some storminess all the way down to the northeastern United States, but mostly it's Canada there where we see a pretty major snowstorm happening for some areas there pretty far north. Mostly here is where I'm talking about, north of that low. Very interesting, and then we see a Rocky Mountain storm of sorts happening, but very, very weak at this point. Let's move this towards Saturday, and I want to see if we can see that curvature. It's a 960 millibar low pressure center by this point, Saturday the 24th. Very strong low pressure center, probably getting up there in some hurricane categories. And we see what it did is it kind of just moved in like this, and it curved out and just stalled. It slowed down to nearly nothing, but watch where it goes. Starts just heading eastward. So it does this. And at that point, what's it going to do? We have seen, we've obviously historically seen hurricanes that can do this, kind of scrape. Usually they'll weaken pretty quickly if they do that. It could just head straight in. Or alternatively, a little bit of an optimistic look. I have seen this happen before, and if this happens, everybody's going to be saying, oh no, it's going to hit the East Coast, but sometimes what we see happen is it'll literally just do a flip like this. I've seen that happen as well, where it looks like it's going to hit the southeast coast, but it actually just rolls around. So that is also a possibility in this scenario. But this is only one model run on only one model, so we'll take it with a grain of salt. Anything truly is possible, so we're going to consider it, but definitely there is more possibilities than just this, obviously. Now, for the total precipitation through the next 10 days, here we are taking a look at it. If you're anywhere in the whites, we're taking a look at practically no precipitation. Your grays will be 1/10 of an inch or less of precipitation. Your greens will be about 1/10 of an inch to 1/2 an inch. Your blues will be 1/2 an inch to an inch. Your yellows will be 1 inch to 2 inches. Your reds will be 2 to 5 inches. Your browns will be 5 to 10 inches. And then your blues will be 10 to 15 inches of rainfall. We see some of that with that tropical system over the ocean and over Dominican Republic and the Bahamas. And even some purples in there where there's 15 to 20 inches of precipitation expected, extreme amounts. So if this was to head on shore, it would bring a lot of flooding with it, as with most hurricanes. Now, total snowfall, we do see that we have plenty of snowiness happening in here. Also some along the Sierra Nevadas and Cascades as well. And that's all the snowfall we have expected over the next 10 days for obvious reasons, because we're very, very early in the season. But if you're anywhere in the grays, we're expecting a dusting, if anything. Blues will be 2 to 6 inches of snowfall, and then your purples will be 6 to 10. We even see some pinks there for some of the tallest mountain ranges there in Wyoming. And that's where we expect 10 to 15, maybe even 20 inches of snowfall. Now let's take a look at that temperature pattern. And as you can see, we already have some colder air in place here for the eastern and the western United States, especially the west there, though. They're seeing definitely the most cold. And then what we're going to see happen over time is we're going to see this warm up, really move into the eastern United States, where we see the neutral and cold temperatures out west. And what this does is this allows for the heat to really move into especially the central United States, but also the eastern United States as we approach mid next week. But what's going to happen is that cold front's going to come through, where we're going to have this type of a setup. The very, very strong low is up here. The cold air is pouring in behind this. True Arctic blast really here. And then we see warm air racing ahead of this. This could lead towards some pretty strong thunderstorms along that line when we see these extreme high temperatures out ahead of it. 90s widespread in here, possibly even triple digits for some spots right ahead of that cold front, where there's 70s behind it. So imagine how big of a turn of events that would be. And then by Friday, we see that this is fully moved in. We see a big old cool down in the eastern United States. Still some colder air out west. Very rare to see cold in the west and the east, but this is one of those examples. And then by the time we reach kind of like the late weekend, we see it moving out a little bit to where we have mostly heat out west. So I would say that this cooler or neutral air is probably going to stay here, but it's a lot less extreme by this point. And obviously a tropical system would probably cool things down for anywhere that would hit as well. Usually you see very unseasonably cold temperatures underneath tropical systems and right behind them. So that is why I say that. Now, speaking of the tropical system, let's take a look at that cone forecast. Here we are taking a look at it. As you can see in the cone forecast, it's still expected to stay a tropical storm the entire way through, all the way through Wednesday, where the National Hurricane Center now expects it to be over the Bahamas. This trajectory is obviously a lot more concerning at this point. The old trajectory had it much further north. What we've seen is basically it was supposed to head west from where it was, directly west, but it's headed very far south from where it was. It's hard to show you exactly where it was. Let me see if I can get it on screen. No, I don't think they have it on here. I was thinking maybe the forecast track line would have the history, but we see it is headed directly south basically for a little while here. Now they expect it to head directly west from here, but it could head even further south. Um, we expect it to go right over the Dominican Republic and Haiti, probably more Dominican Republic, as you can see. And that's going to keep this storm a little bit weaker, especially that interaction with Puerto Rico as well. So this will just stay a tropical storm. It'll probably get pretty eaten up by Dominican Republic. That can be expected. But after it gets through there, expect rapid fire development with this one as it approaches kind of the southeast. We'll have to see if it looks like more of a coastal threat or more of an out to sea threat, or possibly looking like it's going out to sea and then curving right back towards the east coast. There's so many possibilities with this one. Obviously, we're hoping for the best, but we're going to track this one daily. Be sure to subscribe as we do that. Tune in daily. We do make daily uploads, and we're going to be tracking this one all the way through. So tune in with this daily. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it, and leave a comment down below with your thoughts. Let me know what you think will happen with this one, and I'll see you guys in the next video.